It was challenging, but not in a sort of Suzuka, Monaco kind of way, which are tracks that really take your breath away. The challenge here is managing the temperatures, the wind. We had the occasional sandstorm back in the day, but we don't seem to have any issue like that ahead of this qualifying session. And it's more of a sort of join the dots type racetrack. And for that, you need confidence in your car, and you need a car that's giving you stability. And what we're looking at there with the wind is a whole bunch of nature's instability, and we may see cars struggling to put a lap together.
Jolien Palmer had 2 weekends around this racetrack in Formula One. Jolien, what was your experience of this place behind the wheel, and how much is that wind going to play a part in potentially upsetting the order that we've seen so far in practice?
I enjoyed the circuit. I agree with DC. There's no sort of mega corners or iconic sections of this track, but together it's really nice. There's some nice undulations. There's some sort of medium speed. The end of the first sector's a medium right-hander, and then you descend the hill through 5, 6 and 7. That sort of left, right, left could be quite critical. And you can overtake around this circuit as well, but that's for tomorrow. The wind is going to be a massive factor. It's quite exposed, and where I mentioned those undulations, there's a couple of times where you come over a crest. One of them is in turn 13, where you feel like you're okay, you're kind of in the lead, and then you come over the crest and suddenly you get gusted by the wind. And you can be on a great lap and you feel hooked up, suddenly you're off the track and the lap's gone to pot. So that's the big test for everyone to get the lap together.
You're looking at the state of the World Championship.
Voilà, dans 1 minute ça commence les gars. Séance de qualification de Bahreïn. Est-ce qu'on va avoir des surprises? Vous êtes Adjar. Adjar, oui, il est pas mal. C'est vrai que Adjar, il est vraiment très bien sur les...
are trying to retain, having won it last year. And DC, on the evidence of practice so far, they are very much the team to beat.
Yeah, I think we come off the back of 1 week ago in Suzuka. We had a moment there in qualifying that reminded me why I used to wake up as a wee boy in the middle of the night to watch these legends behind the wheel, because you saw something that you just didn't expect. And it was quite brilliant. Well, we're going to see brilliance this afternoon, no question. But I think that brilliance is going to be decided in terms of pole position between 2 men, and that's the McLaren drivers. They have opened up their performance level here, unless one of you two gents can convince me otherwise ahead of what's about to unfold.
It's not going to be me. They've been so far off the road. And it's been a car, the McLaren, that's been obviously very quick. They've been the quickest car through all the weekends. Either Norris or Piastri could and probably should have had pole in Japan, but it was Verstappen's brilliance that took it. But this weekend, I feel like, even though it's been dusty, the temperatures have been high and then lower as we've gone into day and night, the McLaren hasn't looked quite as on a knife edge as before. The drivers have been able to get more of a tune out of it without being as scrappy. And that means that we've just had probably a truer reflection of the pace. They're half a second clear of the rest in FP2. They were more than that in FP3. I think all the gaps will come down. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park, but I agree, DC. I think they're going to be the team to beat. If they have anything less than a 1-2 on the grid, they will be disappointed. That's the state of play.
Piastri ce matin, très fort, franchement, devant Norris.
Yeah, and I think the confidence, talking to some of the team members, we're into the season now. You know, you spent a lot of time here pre-season covering the testing, and we were starting to get a feel of who's hot and who wasn't. But now we've got some data points of Grand Prix racing, and McLaren confidence is growing. I think that will be reflected beyond this qualifying, and some of the decisions they make in races coming up, where inevitably, if it continues to be a battle between the two drivers in that team, then hard decisions will need to be made. But right here, right now, this is the Scooby-Doo moment of Formula One for drivers. This is the build-up to what will be, or should be, the fastest moment of your weekend. Into new tyres, low fuel, and the track as good as it's going to be in terms of qualifying.
We have a green light at the end of the pit lane. We have Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll and Nico Hülkenberg on outlaps at the moment, building that tyre temperature. Earlier on in practice, Hülkenberg pulled to the side of the road with a mechanical issue. Fernando Alonso's steering wheel has come off in his hands at that corner earlier in the weekend as well, and Lance Stroll has been in the bottom 5 so far across the course of the weekend, a reason why the 3 of them are immediately out there and setting to work.
So they could burn through tyres in Q1, and that's what they're going to do. Hulkenberg, as you mentioned, trying to make up for lost time earlier on, and Aston Martin really struggling so far this weekend. So the three of them are out, and they have the track to themselves. Everyone else waiting. Track evolution in this circuit, especially now the wind's picked up and you've got sand around the track, it's going to be quite high again, and the temperatures will cool. So this is not going to be the best lap, but it's more a sighter for Hulkenberg, Stroll and Alonso. And it shows they're all worried about being knocked out in Q1.
So out there very early, and Hulkenberg, on average so far this year, the 14th best qualifier in the field. Driver who made getting to the top 10 an art form last year. 11 times he was able to do so, but he hasn't quite had the field behind the wheel. The Sauber, the final team in the classification last year in the Constructors' Championship, finishing last for only the second time in team history. Back in 1993 in the context, and they will become Audi next year, and they will hope to climb the ladder all the way to the top in Formula 1. But there are so many competitive teams in this era, that would be a very difficult task. Hulkenberg, Alonso and Stroll are the drivers out there. Outlaps for Gasly, who has gone well across the course of the weekend so far. Max Verstappen, who will be looking to book his place in the next 15. And Yuki Tsunoda, who was struggling in the bottom 5 earlier on, could not find a clean lap around the 15 turns of Bahrain International Circuit. Hulkenberg goes comfortably clear of Stroll.
Yeah, and that's not a good thing for the confidence as you build towards qualifying. When the data, you can say, well, look, I can pull a few sectors together and it gives me a lap time, but you want to feel it as a whole. You want to know how the tyres evolve over the lap as we get that opening performance there from Alonso. For the steering wheel firmly affixed.
Yeah, bizarre one in practice when it came off in his hands and they had to replace the parts. Stroll's time was deleted for track limits. Alonso went ahead of Hulkenberg, and you can now see the furious work down at Haas, where Ocon has had to jump out of the car and they're making alterations to his seat and the cockpit.
So he might be in trouble here of not getting 2 runs, I'd have thought. With 13.5 minutes, you can see everyone else now heading out. They waited for the first 5 minutes, let the early birds set the pace, and they'll wait. So the rest of the field funneling out, they'll go for 2 runs, or certainly have the time to do it. In a Haas that's certainly not safe in Q1, is going to have to wait and hope that he can get a couple of flyers. Otherwise, it's a tall order to jump in right at the end in these conditions with the gusting wind and hook it all up. Track limits is going to be a thing as well, as proven by Lance Stroll. 1/3 of the drivers to go for it have already lost their time, so there's a few places you can do it around this circuit.
The old trusty track limits. I do not enjoy those, but it is what it is. It's a feature of this racetrack. But just a bit of paddock rumour on Ocon, which I normally don't indulge in, but apparently he's really been sort of taken back just by the performance of Behrman. You know, young rookie coming in, full of the joys of spring, and it's kind of unsettling a little bit. I don't know if you've been picking up on that in your chats, but you know, it's all part of the game, isn't it? Your teammate is the first rival you must beat.
If you watch the entirety of the Formula 2 Championship last year, you would think 12th place finisher, been promoted thanks to the Ferrari Academy. If you knew the entirety of Oliver Behrman's career, I don't think it would have been a shock. But Ocon has a seriously quick customer on his hands. We've had 1 session at night in these temperatures so far this weekend. Ocon was 16th, Oliver Behrman was 9th.
And this is a driver that's won a Grand Prix, Esteban Ocon, and he's moved over to Haas. He felt like he was getting slightly iced out of Alpine. They kept Gasly, dropped Ocon moved to fastest new, and he is thinking still that he's team leader at the team. He's more experienced and he's a race winner, but you know, it's not massive surprise to us because we've seen already a few times what Behrman can do as Verstappen smokes it into the final corner.
Yeah, aborts that one, and that will have damaged the tyre.
Verstappen straight in to the pit lane, the on-track limits. This is his teammate through the same corner a couple of seconds ago, and he too heads wide beyond the white line. Both Red Bulls failing to get cleanly through the final corner.
Tsunoda was 1/10 up on Verstappen until that corner, so he's actually done a quicker middle sector than Max, 1/10 away in the first sector, so it's actually a pretty decent opening gambit there for Yuki. But I think this is a feature of the gusting winds. It's pushing the drivers in that final corner. And so you've got to change your brake references. You've got to bring it a little bit earlier, because then there's a heap of understeer you can pick up.
Yeah, also the other factor, Julian, that as we know from having been in these high-performing aerodynamic vehicles, a gust of wind can change everything.
Max Verstappen, big lock-up DC compared to the understeer that we've seen at that corner across the weekend.
Yeah, look, that was definitely not on the script, and quite unusual to see a lock-up like that drags her out onto the curb. It's not unusual to see people do what Yuki's done, which is get kind of onto that.
J'ai pas trop vu la première séance des séries 2. 7, une 32-1.
Sort of contact action. It's almost like it sucks the car beyond the white line.
Albon, 7e temps,
so two different incidents, but both ways Tsunoda's time has been deleted. He will tumble out of your classification. There you go, right on cue. It's doing then Sainz, then Gasly. Both Red Bulls having a moment at the final corner. Max Verstappen reporting on the radio that something was wrong with the car. We're watching the Ferraris. Amazing support around the world.
Hamilton 2e, 31-9. On voit les Ferraris qui ont caché leur jeu.
Position of one around here. Lewis Hamilton is a 5-time winner. But on a push lap, in competitive qualifying spec, he's behind Jack Doohan, who's currently fastest. Doohan's been on pole around here before in Formula 2, he's currently fastest in Formula 1.
Yeah, that will not satisfy him as an opening lap for Hamilton. And then you mentioned Ferrari, everything that goes with that team, as you see fight the rear on power. Look at the Montezemolo, one of the great managers of that team over the history of time, was in the paddock. There's many celebrities, ex-racers come to this Grand Prix, but it almost feels like it's a papal visit, if I'm hopefully not being disrespectful, but he really has such presence through the history of what he contributed as a leader of the Ferrari Formula 1 team.
Yeah, team manager in the 70s when Niki Lauda was winning titles, and the president of Ferrari when Michael Schumacher was winning 5 titles in a row, something Max Verstappen is trying to emulate this year. Over the line fastest went Piastri, even quicker went Lando Norris. McLaren 1-2. Charles Leclerc went ahead of Jack Doohan's time, and now we're on board with Kimi Antonelli, who in the dry has been quite close over one lap to George Russell, his teammate who dominated the qualifying head-to-head compared to Lewis Hamilton over the course of the last season against the 7-time world champion. Antonelli saying he was finding more information about these Pirelli tyres, about how to keep them in the temperature window and extract all the performance that comes with it. He goes into 4th position, Russell just a few moments away, and he stacks up behind Doohan and behind his teammate.
It's a very good lap from Doohan, isn't it, to be up there in now 6th place as Fernando Alonso comes through. But that is Alonso's 2nd set of tyres that he's already bolted on. So he was one of the 3 early drivers to hit the track on the green light. They're going now, and you take that bit of game, the knowledge of the first line-up, and you can recalibrate the lenses and make a cleaner job of the second. So he's a bit artificially high at the moment, Alonso, as we have Esteban Ocon out on track as well.
So they have had to make adjustments to the cockpit, make adjustments to the seats. We heard Isaac Hadjar and his tribulations with the seat belts 1 week ago. Esteban Ocon with that wide turn-in over the curve into turn 11, where we've seen so many moments of understeer. The temperature has come down, the grip has gone up. All the drivers who aren't in a McLaren will be grateful for that. It's a McLaren 1-2 with Norris ahead of Piastri. No legal time from either Red Bull. They will go again. And the 2 Saudis find themselves on the brink of elimination with more runs to come, and surprisingly, given his form in the top 10 earlier this weekend, Isaac Hadjar is the driver in 15th position. Ocon's out there, and Ocon's into the top 10. Going again, 2nd push run for Nico Hülkenberg, and he takes his place in 10th, which shows you how much this track is going to improve with every minute that we take off the clock.
Yeah, it's always the case, isn't it, as the drivers establish, right, where's the wind, where's the grip, given that there's been other cars, other formulas out there running. I was slightly taken aback by where Lando, I think it was, and McLaren decided to get out of the way between 12 and 13 on the Haas there. You're unsighted, you're 12 normally completely flat, and so either that was a late call from the team, but normally you'd want to either let them by before the turn or get the hurry up and do it on the back straight. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but just a very unusual place between 2 high-speed corners.
risky business, and if you get it wrong, then stewards will be looking at it, and you'll be getting a grid penalty, as Carlos Sainz had last time out in Japan. And these are the sort of moments when you're McLaren and you have what you think is a significant enough car advantage. You don't want to be making bloopers like that. So anyway, to get away with it, and it's all gone very quiet out on track. Ocon and Hulkenberg returning to the pits. We have 5.5 minutes left for a final flurry of laps, and the pressure's coming on Red Bull here, isn't it? Verstappen bailed out at the final corner. Tsunoda had his lap time deleted, which actually would have been enough for 11th place had he kept it. But they both need to find a clean lap, and I hope there's no disruptions or traffic, because this is a team that should have pace to comfortably get through into Q3, of course.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tap into Alex's encyclopedic mind to ask. And we saw two Red Bulls at the bottom of the times. We know we had issues there, but as we've just been saying, Julie, if they can get a yellow flag now, there could be anything that stops them from getting a run. I think they'll have to go early.
Be interesting to see whether they adjust their approach and they give Tsunoda a chance to attack. Tsunoda's really struggled for pace laps on the soft tyre that have been clean so far, and with a long queue in the pit lane, high pressure moment for a second Red Bull that hasn't been any higher than 14th on the grid all year.
And they've not gone early. I would have thought exactly the same. Go early, you've got the pace to get through, you don't need the last drop of track evolution, certainly if you're Verstappen, to get through this one. But all of those cars that are queuing up ready to get out of the pits, they will start a flying lap before Verstappen and Tsunoda. And if any one of them loops it or has a mistake, runs wide, there could be a yellow flag. And that could be something completely out of your hands that derails Red Bull's whole weekend at this stage. So they are putting the faith into some of the other drivers out there.
Outlaps in progress then, around a circuit that runs to 15 turns, 3.3 miles, 5.4 kilometres in length. And drivers looking over their shoulder. Everyone who finds themselves behind Hulkenberg, who on the second run improved from the drop zone to 10th position.
Absolutely cracking first lap from Jack Dillon. Really impressive. But this is the sort of session where track evolution is going to be whopping. And even Doohan in 6th here, if he doesn't improve, he could get shuffled right down, because everyone else is putting on new boots, the track's getting better and better, and the margins are quite small. But first lap from him out of the blocks in qualifying, full credit, up in the top 6. Who are we looking out for then, other than the Red Bulls that will be disappointed? At the moment, Williams, 11th and 14th, under a bit of pressure, and Pierre Gasly as well. Alpine needs some points, hope for some points. Dillon's obviously shown what the car can do, but Gasly needs to find something, because he'll be eyeing Q3 later.
DC, we've asked the stat man. Last double Q1 elimination for Red Bull.
Monza.
Japan 2006.
Was that a stab in the dark from Julian? He just went with a name.
He loves a pub quiz. He loves a pub quiz, doesn't he?
I thought you were going to say like Monza 2017 or something.
Yeah, well, whatever you did say. 2006 gone back a long way, but they are right at the back of the running order here. Verstappen just making his way in his outlap. Turn 4, a whole host of cars that, as you mentioned, Julian, you're putting your faith in them not making a mistake, running a little silly spin, and a yellow coming out on your lap. You see the lock up there from the Haas dropping down, Behrman dropping down into turn 8. There is a number of corners here where you can get it a little bit wrong.
And there are key questions about Oliver Behrman's lap here. Did he go all 4 wheels off the road on the exit of turn number 4? And how much is that lockup going to cost him? Because this is the run where you really need to improve. You can give yourself the confidence with those early runs, but with the track rubbering in, being at its highest grip at this point, this is the exact moment you have to deliver. And you can see Behrman is not on a personal best when he needs it.
Yeah, he's in trouble. It's not the greatest middle sector. Bortoletto's obviously done a pretty average first sector, so he's got to find a load of time. He's finding a bit, but is it enough? The Red Bulls still on their outlaps.
It has been a scruffy lap out there for Oliver Behrman. Can he hustle it to an improvement? He can, but only to 13th position. That leaves him vulnerable. The man who made Q3 for the first time at the last Grand Prix, potentially staring at the exit. Bortoletto wants to get ahead of Behrman. His old F2 rival, the champion from F2 last year, is up to 12th position. And improvements now for Lance Stroll. Where does it put him into 14th?
Adjar 6e, 5e.
The drop zone here because currently in the bottom 5, Isaac Hadjar expected a lap and he goes P5.
There's another driver that was under pressure in a very fast car, but another decent qualifying effort from Hadjar, and he is going to be easily safe. Verstappen starts a flying lap with 30 seconds to go. Got across the line. He has a big twitch coming through turn 2 as well.
Yeah, that did not look as if the rear tyres were switched on as he exited that first sequence of corners. Interesting as well, Hadjar would have got the news that there was a faster car on track. He got right up against the pit lane. There was no sort of, okay, I'm going to deliver the switch well out of it.
Max Verstappen is being compared to Lando Norris at the moment. Yuki Tsunoda is pushing out there as well. 29.1 for Max Verstappen in the first sector, 29.2 for Yuki Tsunoda. The checkered flag is flying. And I have to tell you, there is a message on our timing page that Max Verstappen went all four wheels off the road at turn 15, which would get this lap deleted if it's accurate. We're going to wait to see whether race control issue a second instruction there. But Max Verstappen is still currently at pole, despite pushing on.
So that's at the end of his outlap, which must just be a mistake, or he's tried desperately to get out of the way of someone. I can't believe he's taken an actual gain there. He's keeping his foot in for now anyway.
And we have not seen a replay of that, so let's deal with what we see on the racetrack at the moment. Max Verstappen coming around the corner, which caused all the trouble before. The spectacular star of Suzuka just fighting to get out of the first part of qualifying. Verstappen goes to third place. Yuki Tsunoda's trying to join him in the next part of qualifying. Albon's in the drop zone as well. Here's Yuki. Only his second weekend with the Red Bull team. Yuki Tsunoda gets to 11th, and he performs when he needed to. Lawson is out. Bortoleto, Stroll, Behrman. And then the final question, Hulkenberg versus Alex Albon, the tie driver across the line, and Albon improves to 14th position. Esteban Ocon on the brink. Fernando Alonso goes to 12th. Esteban Ocon takes it away from his old teammate. Does anyone have an improvement later on? Hulkenberg does, to demote Albon back into the bottom 5. Albon, who has been in the points all the way through so far this season, finds himself in the bottom 5 for the 4th Grand Prix of the year, along with Liam Lawson, Gabriel Bortoleto, Stroll and Behrman's tough lap at the end leaves him last for the 4th race of the season.
Well, that goes to show the improvements that you have to make at the end. And Albon out in 16th, and we really disappointed. Lawson's not in a good qualifying there either. 6/10 away from Hadjar. Behrman and Bortoleto both made mistakes. Stroll never really had the pace to get through, even though he had 3 cracks in it. Amazing job from Doohan once again. The Alpines in 5th and 8th. Doohan looking the most consummate he's looked so far in Formula 1 by a long shot here so far. We haven't seen anything more about Verstappen, so he did go off on that first lap, didn't he, at that corner?
Sorry guys, but I don't really.
Doohan, il est bien. Doohan, en vrai, il est chaud patate là en qualification. Est-ce que Verstappen s'est annulé ou pas? Pour l'instant, on n'a pas de confirmation.
Sorry guys, but I don't really.
The first few races has teamed up with Sainz, and then Albon has looked the more comfortable. I guess not surprising given his experience with the team. But Sainz has looked more settled in this car this weekend, and I think that's now reflected in him getting that in 11th for this part of qualifying.
Well, the 5 heading out in the first part of qualifying. Albon, Lawson, Bortoleto, Stroll and Behrman. And that's the information we've got.
We had a problem with DRS there.
No way, mate.
And we're checking what happened there. They opened and it closed again.
I opened it. I didn't close it.
Yeah, copy. We see it. We just need to understand what happened.
Oh my god, man.
Albon, en plus, la première fois qu'il a fait éliminé en Q1 parce qu'en Australie, en Chine et le week-end dernier au Japon, c'était qualifié 3 fois en Q3, si je ne me trompe pas. Donc là, si
So Liam Lawson finding himself with DRS not working at a crucial moment. Lance Stroll struggling along with the Aston Martin pace overall. Fernando Alonso in 13th, Stroll eliminated in the first part of qualifying. This is his second consecutive Q1 elimination.
We had a problem with DRS there.
No way,
Pour
mate.
l'instant, Verstappen, il n'y a
Checking
pas de
what happened there.
changement.
They opened, then it closed again.
I opened
Alors,
it.
je sais pas ce qui s'est passé,
I
mais apparemment,
closed
Verstappen
it.
se fait sortir en
Yeah,
dehors des
copy.
limites de la
We see it.
piste.
We just need to understand what happened.
Oh my god,
Bon, on
man.
va faire un petit point là avant
We
qu'on
are
a peut-être l'annonce de
P17,
Verstappen avant que la Q2 commence.
Lift
Donc
off.
les éliminés, j'ai dit en Q1, on a Albon,
As
Lawson,
set,
Bortoleto,
system
Stroll et
of
Bierman.
and then
Donc
it
du coup,
closed.
on a une As, une Aston Martin,
Deployment that
une
then
Sauber,
goes a
une
little bit
Racing
haywire
Bulls,
as
une
the
Williams.
speed is different to what's being
Hülkenberg qualifié,
expected. So
franchement très belle qualif
Lawson
Hülkenberg.
with some
Tsunoda,
technical issues
franchement,
maybe
ouais,
explaining
pas de
the
phase parce
gap
qu'il a une
compared to
37.
Hadjar, because that's a pretty big 6/10.
Verstappen, il a une 33.
And it is similar for Albon compared to Carlos Sainz, who's half a second ahead. So I think the Verstappen message is a delayed one. We've had it on race control as he's completed his outlap, but we've not seen a replay, and I think it must be from where he went off at the start of qualifying, and for some reason that's just come through as he starts his final lap, but it's from where he already pitted.
Yeah, race control having a party with that one. It was 17 minutes past the hour in this crucial qualifying lap, and they fired through the information. Let's hear from Laura Winter speaking to Davide Valsecchi about everything we've seen in Q1.
Thank you very much, Alex. Yeah, fascinating on that Red Bull. Just the one run for both cars to get it done, Davide. We were watching through our fingers there. What did you make of that?
Yeah, it seems that maybe the first runner they got surprised a bit about the fact about the wind, because it seems at the last corner Verstappen miscompleted the brake. Tsunoda were difficult to contain the car into the white line and they jump over and the lap time delayed. So probably the wind affected them, but at the end, at the last time, under the flag, they could recover the situation. Verstappen on top, Tsunoda 14th, so it was almost out at the limit.
Yeah, it was an absolute battle there to get through. Ultimately, Hulkenberg just knocking out Alex Albon. He'll be gutted. You heard it on the radio. Guys, I don't really... He couldn't even finish the sentence. He was so at a loss for answers.
Yeah, for the first time that Sainz out-qualify Albon this year, so it seems that Sainz is recovered this feeling to be on the top drive, to be a top driver. Albon, yeah, disappointing because we were expecting much more from him, to be honest.
So a mistake there for Behrman, Stroll out, Bortoleto out, Lawson and Albon all out. What a job, though, by Jack doing. P5 in Q1. We'll see if he can keep it up. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Davide. You're looking at Isaac Hadjar once again, finding himself in the top 10. Very impressive start to life in Formula One, as long as you ignore the first race of the year. Well, he didn't start that one. Ever since he started races, he's been looking very, very good.
So Tsunoda 14th and Verstappen 3rd, as Davide mentioned. Quite a big gap in terms of performance, in terms of the places, but it's 4 tenths between them, which is not terrible considering the pressure that both were under with no time on the board. And for Tsunoda comparing up to Verstappen, hopefully you think you can narrow that gap with another look at data, with a couple of shots in Q2 as well. But 4 tenths is in the realm of respectability for a Red Bull second driver from what we've seen.
Yeah, the entire grid down to Behrman covered in 1.2 seconds. We've had this conversation before, just reflecting how incredibly competitive the Formula 1 season is. I didn't see the F2 qualifying, but I suspect there was a bigger spread of lap time in a one-make formula.
There definitely was. I can tell you that. It was much bigger gaps out there. Just the second round of their championship, but it does show you, as you point out, DC, just how unbelievably competitive the championship is, even though everyone is building their own car. It might be an evolution from last year, but it's still a new machine. Updates all the time. Ferrari have a new floor on the car for this weekend, which they hope will bridge the gap to the McLarens at the front of the field. Both drivers reporting that it is a step, but it's not going to close down what seems to be a 2 or 3 tenths of a second advantage. We have a green light at the end of the pit lane. Q2 in progress with the 15 fastest cars on this Saturday qualifying night.
So the McLarens and Charles Leclerc managed to get through that on one set of tyres. Everyone else had to throw a second set of tyres at that one. Hamilton found some good pace, as did Verstappen, to get close, but they're going to probably pay the cost of that at the start of this Q2.
track conditions are established, so for everyone that's now getting into what is a less busy session, less cars on track, so we'll still find them tripping over each other, I'm sure, towards the end of the session, but they've now established, right, this is the window of where the car is at this track temperature with his wind level. They do have some tools at the driver's disposal, electronic tools for differential and the lights. Little nibble on the front wing, but for the rest, the only thing you can do is really polish it.
I quite like this part of it as a driver. You're in the night, all you can see with the lights on is just laser focus on the track ahead. It's quite nice when the back 5 cars don't come back out and you've got fewer cars to deal with as well. And as Lucy says, there's not much to do apart from a little trim here. It is just your finishing touches now, and the grip level will continue to get better, but by smaller increments. And it's simply just extracting the best by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds that you can through the whole qualifying hour. The night sessions as well, there's something more special about driving a car flat out in the darkness. I think it's just the tunnel vision.
Or is it to do with the fact, Julian, you're not a morning person?
Well, it could be that as well. Maybe that's why I had one of my better qualifyings here. Just needed that. My best race was Singapore. Hang on, DC.
You're onto something.
I would have been amazing in Vegas.
Yuki Tsunoda's back out there early on and trying to put that Red Bull higher than it's been at any point this season so far. So that would be top 13 for the second Red Bull. Liam Lawson, 2 race weekends. Yuki Tsunoda is going to be taking part in the second Grand Prix for the senior team. As we right on board with him, and a big moment. That is a big crash. Esteban Ocon in the Haas, opening part of the lap, and he's found the barriers. Most importantly, he's okay, but the rest of the out. Esteban Ocon is out in the second part of qualifying over the curbs of turn 2, making his way to turn 3 and instead finding the wall.
Yeah, very unusual place, pretty much opposite side of the racetrack where Grosjean famously crashed his Haas, and maybe just a bit further down, but we'll find out with replays what might have been the cause of that, but certainly great to hear him say he's okay. Definitely going to need extensive rebuild. It will not polish out.
No, everyone else will carry on doing the polishing, but that one is a bigger rebuild job. It's a smash into the back, isn't it? It's a difficult traction zone coming through turns 2 and 3. I suspect he's tried to light it up on the curb and broken traction through the exit of 2 into turn 3, and that's just spat him off to the left-hand side. But we will get a replay, I'm sure, shortly to confirm that. It's something that I've seen before a few times.
Here we go, on board. This was a push lap for him, first 2 turns of the racetrack.
So he's into the apex of turn 1 nicely, opens up 2. Yeah, there we go. So he's losing it already, the exit of 2. Then he goes out wide to the curb, but he hasn't got the car settled at all. It's actually not the biggest impact into the wall.
Looks worse from the cutaway to the car with the rear end damaged than it did on board.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. Ouais, l'impact ça va, il y a le bac à gravier avant. Il tape à l'arrière. La voiture a rebondi, il revient du coup.
It's okay. You're okay, so that's good.
Of ownership, we can see you trying to keep the foot in, as you explained, Julian, and that artificial grass. Unfortunately, we've seen it more, but we've seen it in this modern era of Formula One with the size of the cars and the momentum that goes with the mass and the weight, that when a driver has a correction, very often you see what is
Le début de As, le début de son de As, il est catastrophique. Australie, c'était nulle part. En Chine, c'était un peu mieux.
Quite often, it sends them on a one-way ticket to the barrier.
En Chine, ils ont fait 5 et 7.
It's kind of a bit of desperation to keep his foot in. If that's in free practice, he'll back out of it and he'll go again on the next lap. But this is qualifying. It's a new set of tyres. Haas need everything they can possibly get to get into Q3. his teammate didn't hook up a lap at the start last tomorrow. So Ocon's just trying to send it. He's obviously, he'll know from the cockpit there, he'll just feel the car's getting light underneath him as he's coming through turn 2. But he doesn't want to back out of the throttle to save the car, because he'll lose the lap, and there's a long run with DRS up towards turn 4, so he's just hoping that he has the skill level there to catch whatever slide will greet him. And on that occasion, as he bounced over the curb, it was too much for him.
Well, has have history in that part of the racetrack, as you point out, DC. Grosjean on the barrier on the other side. Remarkable moments in Formula 1's most recent history, as he was able to escape the fireball. That barrier was last hit in a Haas when Nikita Mazepin hit the barrier, dropping it with the car heavy with fuel at the opening of the 2021 Grand Prix around here. Esteban Ocon is out. 4 others are not going to make their way through into the final part of qualifying. But it's 1 Haas in 20th place after a really tricky final lap for Oliver Behrman, and 1 will be having to have a rebuild whilst we wait for the resumption of the session. Let's hear from one of the drivers eliminated in the first part of qualifying. This is Liam Lawson.
Hey Liam, we had a bit of team radio where there seemed to be a problem with the DRS. Do you reckon that ultimately cost you in that final run?
Yeah, unfortunately yes. It was Q1 was alright up until that point. I don't really know what happened, but I know I had a wheel spin out of the corner and then open DRS, and then it closed again basically. So. Yeah, it's pretty frustrating, obviously, but just sucks.
Massively unlucky. It doesn't really feel like you've had any luck recently, but looking ahead to tomorrow, at least you felt like there was pace in the car, right? So that's optimistic.
Yep, it's been quite quick. You know, it's been quick this weekend, and in most of the practice sessions, I would say, for us it was just piecing it together in quali and tuning it up, and I think we had the car in a pretty good window, and the speed was there. It's just a shame for the issue. So I think for tomorrow, it's obviously positive. The speed we have, we should move forward. It's just how far forward we can move.
Best luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Lawrence Beretta in conversation with Liam Lawson, and the frustration for Lawson writ large after a technical problem affects his progression. 0.6 of a second, it was worth him driving around the 15 turns. We're going to have a resumption in about 2.5 minutes. We'll get a green light at the end of the pit lane, and we'll see who our top 10 drivers are who progress, and positions 10 down to 14 still need to be decided. Let's hear from a bit of a surprise after making Q3 last time out in Japan. Oliver Behrman was out in Q1, this time in Bahrain.
Hey Ollie, you were so quick in these kind of conditions yesterday in FP2. Just what happened on that final lap and that final run?
Yeah, just a messy lap, honestly. I've been struggling a lot all weekend with front locking, and that was the same case in qualifying. Yeah, really hard to get confidence with those type of issues, and unfortunately didn't put a good lap on the board.
How much has it dented your confidence with the car that you kind of having those problems, and does that mean it might be tricky to try and close them in back tomorrow?
Yeah, it's strange because I felt good yesterday in FP2 despite these issues, and I think as I've tried to extract more performance out of the car, I've been limited more and more. And you know, when you don't have confidence in a car like this, then you can't extract the lap time. So that's annoying, but we'll see what we can do tomorrow. Yeah.
Hard luck, Ollie. Thank you.
Ollie Behrman philosophical about his exit. He did say on the radio, even when he was quick yesterday, that he was struggling to understand what the car was going to do. And he was confused by the overall performance, but he was out in the first part of qualifying. Q in the pit lane, because in a few moments' time we're going to get a resumption of the session. Esteban Ocon with that hit into the barrier is out, and 14 drivers remain trying to book their place in Q3. Among them, Fernando Alonso, who has managed to get there previously in his career, but not so far this season. So he is attempting to make it through into the top 10 for the first time in 2025. Aston Martin struggling for pace on Friday, but he always gives you an opportunity behind the wheel.
Form on this circuit as well, Fernando Alonso. So everyone is in a rush to get out because they want to still get their 2 sets of tyres in. So this is effectively now Q3 length, or even just slightly shorter than. So it's going to be a rush, and everyone, you can see, waiting for the green light. There it is, and off we go, back into what is going to be a pretty hectic Q2.
Kimi Antonelli is the first car to lead away. George Russell, difficult performance compared to the first couple of Grand Prix of the year last time out in Japan. Said it was the first time he didn't maximise everything in Suzuka, and as a result was unable to trouble Charles Leclerc, who scored Ferrari's best result of the season with 4th place. Yuki Tsunoda is biding his time, not part of the queue.
The Liam Lawson interview as well, obviously Liam very frustrated, he's out in Q1. It sounded like it was probably one DRS that he pressed the button and opened it, and it came back shut again, from the way that he was talking rather than a general DRS issue. Sounds like it was one of them, but it's enough just to, when you're approaching then the next corner with a speed that you're not expecting, you can then brake too early, you slow it down, you don't have the same rhythm. So it can just throw you completely out of kilter, and he didn't need a huge amount to get through into Q2.
Yeah, I'm interested to see once all the dust settles in this qualifying session whether it was a just isolated one-off event, because I didn't see him outpacing Hadjar at any of the other points. And just remind yourself, he does have more experience, so that really is putting this one individual disappointment to one side. That's his focus. He's got to establish himself there as the sort of team leader if he stands a chance of prolonging his career not only at Racing Bulls but maybe getting an opportunity again back into the main team.
Yeah, his season's not got any easier, has it, since he's gone to the Racing Bulls car, overtaken by Tsunoda in the last race. Yuki's back into Q2 here as Liam's out, and he was half a second away from Hadjar, and I don't think it probably was that level of deficit from what it sounds like, but we'll have a look overnight and see.
Okay, crucial laps now at a circuit where the wind is more intense than it was earlier on, and the drivers have gone from the hot temperatures of the final practice session to the cooler temperatures and the attack of Q2. Kimi Antonelli, who was chasing George Russell all the way home in Japan 1 week ago, trying to get himself back into the final part of qualifying, something he's managed in the sessions so far after Australia, where he was knocked out in the first part, where he had damage to the floor, and he's going through the sweepers, plunging down the hill to the rotation at turn number 8. We're on board with VisorCam.
Yeah, I love this when you get to see the driver working the wheel, and it was one of the more challenging corners in this track is when you come through the kink here, inside wheel gets unloaded. It takes patience in a corner like that, and in many ways when you lose patience you lose time. You just got to trust letting the car flow. And then this part of the racetrack is all about speed and downforce, and as we know, Grand Prix cars come alive above 100 miles an hour when you get ample amount of downforce pushing the car into the tarmac. It makes you feel talented.
Antonelli is nearly at the end of the lap. He clears Charles Leclerc's Ferrari. The incident involving him and Russell has been noted for failing to follow the race director's instructions. They vary weekend to weekend. They left the garage before the resumption time of the session was announced, which is a admin thing, but that has been noted by race control. It's a 1:31.178 to beat, and George Russell can't beat it. So middle sector didn't go to plan, final sector didn't go to plan, and the lead Mercedes on the grid for all of the Grand Prix so far is behind his 18-year-old teammate. The times will be reset in 7 minutes' time. Hulkenberg goes into third.
Antonelli's looking good, isn't he, so far this weekend? And he's been right there with Russell. Was slightly quicker than George in Q1, and is slightly quicker again in Q2. That's almost matching the time that Lando did at the first part of qualifying. The McLarens are going quicker now, though. You can see Norris has done the best middle sector, Piastri's done the best first. They might be about to lower that benchmark.
Gasly goes up to 4th. We have a look at our championship contenders now. Norris, Verstappen and Piastri. The top 3 drivers in the early point standings for the championship. Norris goes 0.6 of a second ahead. Verstappen doesn't fancy it at all and peels back to the pits. And Piastri looked really good earlier on. Looked really good under the floodlights in the practice session. Held around here. He's got 1 Formula 1 pole position to his name in the Grand Prix format. He's a 1/10 of a second faster than Lando Norris. Piastri never higher than 9th place on the grid around this circuit. Here's a man who's taken pole around here in the past. His first ever Formula 1 pole position around here. He added 25 more since that day in 2019. And Charles Leclerc is best of the rest for Ferrari's P3.
Best final sector as well for Leclerc, so he's managed to do a decent lap time there. Hamilton and Verstappen both picked to give themselves more time for the final run.
And Doohan again finds himself ahead of his experienced teammate Pierre Gasly. Doohan, who is qualifying for only his 5th Grand Prix, getting to a circuit where he's had the testing, getting to a circuit where he's had runs around here in the past in Formula 2, and find himself ahead of Gasly at a circuit where Gasly has finished in the top 4 previously in his career.
Yeah, confidence builds confidence, and he's definitely showing us that he's got a firm grip on that steering wheel.
Il va quand même pour 1 et 2 les gars.
Birthday as well today,
Je pense qu'il y a un petit problème là parce que
especially trying hard to get a little birthday present.
It's not a day to upset him, is it, DC?
Absolutely, I guess that's another way of looking at it. But yeah, really impressive, as Julian touched on in the first part of qualifying. I love to see the drivers look like they're taking the car on a journey. And it's always so painful, isn't it, to watch the drivers struggling for confidence. Everything he does just seems that the car does the opposite. And, you know, you feel their pain, having been there many times in my career where I just couldn't get the car talking to me. You feel helpless.
The driver feeling helpless at turn 10 was Isaac Hadjar, sole remaining racing bull in the session, with another moment at turn 10. We see so many of them. It's a tricky corner, and it's lock-up central, a wide moment beyond the white lines, and that is the reason why he bailed out of the lap. He wasn't the only one as well. Ocon's in the barriers, out of the session, but got so many drivers struggling to keep it within the white lines. He's still technically P13.
Yeah, and it keeps the pressure on a few of the big names. Hamilton bailed out of his lap, Verstappen bailed out of his lap, both of which would have been okay, but they were used tyre laps anyway, so I think they're just putting the focus on for a new tyre run, which they've gone out on now. So we're back into that same situation as we were at the end of Q1. Big pressure for the 2 Red Bulls. Tsunoda didn't even leave the garage there, so he now joins with a new set of tyres. And Hamilton and Verstappen, they all need 1 clean lap. This time they have gone early though.
Yeah, I think it felt to me, because I didn't see any big mistake on either of the laps, but of what we saw, it felt like it was almost part of a strategy. Go and have a run, feel where the track is with these scrub tyres. If the lap magically is coming together, then finish it. But otherwise, it just looked like it was a strategy. Out, in, come for the clean, new tyres, and then trust in yourself to deliver.
Yeah, they were used tyres, so they'll know that it probably wouldn't have been enough to get through. But it still sent the cars out to just get a feel for it. So when they put on the new tyres that they're doing now, they're in a really good window with what they want from the car.
Okay, on board with George Russell. So far this year, George Russell has been the 4th best qualifier on average. He's always been inside the top 5, and in the Chinese Grand Prix he was on the front row, splitting the McLarens. He's currently behind his 18-year-old teammate, dancing his way through turn number 4, keeping it within the white lines, and it's a personal best sector for him at the time he needs it.
3 thousandths separates the 2 Mercedes through the first sector. The advantage of Russell, but they are neck and neck, both trying to just book their place into Q3. Tsunoda through the first sector as well, and he is 1/10 down on the 2 Mercedes. George cleanly through turns 9 and 10, squeeze on the throttle without taking that exit curve that will just unsettle the car, and you'll lose on the way down to turn 11 before opening up getting all over that entry curve, sweeping through, and again giving the exit curve a wide berth. Russell through the middle sector.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the two Mercs nip and tuck in the first. Let's see where Russell delivers his middle marginally quicker, but let's call it nip and tuck with Antonelli as well. So on a track where he almost won in his debut for Mercedes, you would expect him to again be sort of team leader, but Antonelli, who knows the track well from his F2 days, doing a very impressive job.
Yeah, 2020, George Russell got his first taste of the Mercedes team. Very nearly won, as DC referenced. He goes ahead of Antonelli, but Antonelli will be really encouraged with his pace. You consider how strong George Russell was in qualifying last year. Sonoda over the line to 6th position, immediately peels out of the way of cars pushing on and starting their flying laps. Hulkenberg is pushing on, currently in 10th, made that 11th, because Lewis Hamilton has just gone to 5th position. Gasly has the fastest middle sector of anyone so far. This is Isaac Hadjar, currently in the drop zone, trying to return to the top 10 where he's been in the last 2 rounds, and he does get there, 8th place right now.
The Alpine is looking really quick. Gasly is quicker than the McLaren's in the middle part of the lap. He's in 11th, needs to complete this one.
Extraordinary turnaround if you consider he's been last on the grid for the last 2 races around here. He's P3 at the end of that lap. Max Verstappen needed a clean lap between the white lines. He's delivered it, and he goes to 7th position to split the Ferraris.
Sonoda is shuffled down to 9th, and there are plenty of drivers. In fact, everyone aside from Hadjar and Ocon are trying to improve, so Sonoda is in trouble, even if he's only 2/10 away from Verstappen.
Yeah, this is so incredible to watch it unfold, where a car, suddenly the Alpine, which clearly has been performing well generally as we get the end of that session, isn't it just so impressive when a car gives the driver the confidence? That lap from Gasly, that is super competitive. Let's not be fooling ourselves that McLarens are not trying at this stage.
They absolutely are. Gasly's in 3rd. Sainz, lead Williams on the grid for the first time this year, has gone up to 6th position. Hulkenberg using all the road and a bit more on the exit of the corner, trying to improve. And he did not have the grip with the Sauber. It's 13th position for him. What can Doohan do now? He's trying to get through into Q3, and he misses out by fine margins, only 11th. Charles Leclerc down to 9th place. So Doohan got close to Q3 for Alpine. His teammate has booked it. Over the line we go with Charles Leclerc, who's in 6th position, and it's Doohan, Hadjar, Hulkenberg, Alonso, and Ocon, who had the crash. Yuki Tsunoda, for the first time ever around this circuit, gets to Q3, and you've got 2 Red Bulls in the top 10 shootout for the first time this season.
Hats off to Yuki Tsunoda into Q3. He's out-qualified both racing builds, which is easier said than done at the moment for the second Red Bull driver, but crucially, he's only 2/10 away from Verstappen. That's new tyres apiece for the 2 Red Bulls.
Mais Yuki Tsunoda, première fois qualifié quand même, les gars. Je suis content pour Yuki parce que là, en vrai, c'était serré, les gars. 774 millions, 791 pour Doohan. Et en plus, il est juste derrière Verstappen.
Yeah, I can imagine some members of the team are not going to be happy with maximised at 1.4 seconds off the case, but let's just dissect a little bit Gasly.
Ah, je suis content pour Yuki,
yeah, we'll take that over 14. Oh, wait. Yes, we will. Nice work.
Il est un peu mieux quand même. C'était serré, mais je suis dégoûté par contre pour Hadjar. Hadjar, les gars, je suis
happy with that, but expectations a little bit down, I guess.
Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de la Q2? Est-ce que vous êtes surpris de la performance de Tsunoda? Est-ce que Hadjar, vous êtes déçu? Je pense que ça a un peu cassé tout le monde. Ah, je suis dégoûté pour Hadjar.
We know in the cockpit how the
voilà, il y a les 2
McLaren,
McLaren,
corner by
il y a
corner.
les 2 Mercedes, les 2 Ferrari, les 2 Red Bull, on a une Williams et
He's third in an
on a les 4
Alpine.
constructeurs qui sont
So I feel a bit sorry for Jack Doohan on the other hand, because Doohan's been really good for 3 runs. He's been ahead of Gasly. He's gone out for the final lap there in Q2. He's found a couple of attempts on himself. And then he'll have come back in. He'll heard on the radio, I'm sure, that he's out. It's only 11. He'll come back in and think, how have I ended 6/10 away from my teammate? Who's done the most ballistic lap on the other side of the garage.
Well, here's the thing as well, Julian, that you know well. If you're on a bit of a roll, your teammate has the spy in the cab. He's looking at your overlays, he's looking at your data, and he's basically he spent the session watching how Doohan is putting a lap together, and he's gone out, replicated it and added to it.
And in these sessions, you just cannot take your eye off the ball. The track's getting better and better. The times are tumbling. I mean, we're now 7/10 quicker than we were in Q1. And whilst Duhan's been good, you've got to be thinking about the next step and the next step all the time. And he's just missed it only by hundreds, but that's it.
Go out yet. You don't have an official restart plan yet. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Et du coup, il partirait 15e, enfin 14e, je pense, si Esteban lance les stands. C'est vrai que Hülkenberg a dû sortir des limites de la piste.
That's what I thought. Mercedes is dodgy. Yeah, we think they are wrong.
Mercedes would be ahead of them. That was in the race director's notes ahead of the weekend. Top 10 shootout in a few moments' time. Worth saying on Jack Doohan, that is still his career best start in Formula One, but his teammate is making the headlines. What a lap from Pierre Gasly, Laurent Davidet about to go through it.
Thank you, Alex. Yes, so close for Jack Doohan, but he'll be pleased with that, I hope. P11 for his start tomorrow. Pierre Gasly, P3. We felt the Alpines may have something. Let's take a look, Davidet, at his lap, because it was a mighty one. He'll want to replicate in Q3 now.
Very happy for him, very happy because he delivered an amazing performance. And through this lap, check it out with me. It was very good in the first sector, very clean first break, no look up at all, and then he was able to use very well the exit. It's not easy this lap corner. We saw the incident of Ocon just before there on the outside, on the left side, but here starts this magic because he's the quickest guys in the field in the second sector. Here is the magic. 6 gears through, right and left, and then here in the airfield. Braking zone, very clean. A bit earlier to use the exit gear and to go immediately in the throttle and to have an amazing traction and then downhill, turn 10. Easy to lock up the front wheel, look the line, wide, and then spot on the white line with the left wheel. Amazing lap, very clean, and then he confirmed that on the third sector with no mistake at all. Very easy driving style, since that car was magical, but probably only Gasly could do it with the pit. Well done to him.
Yeah, what a lap, and look, an applause from Davidet for that lap. And it was at a time when Alpine were beginning to get questions, weren't they, of are you know, you're the only team yet to score points. Are they coming here at a track that the teams and drivers know well? They tested here, but very different conditions to testing. For Jack Doohan, firstly, it's going to be mixed emotions, right?
Yeah, because it was close, but we have to remember the names in front of him. Okay, Tsunoda, but then Hamilton, Leclerc, Antonelli with Mercedes, Verstappen that was 9th at the end. I mean, okay, he was beaten by champions, so should be proud of it. For sure, Gasly did something special. Doohan has to improve a bit, also because it's a risky situation by side Gasly. He's a top driver in Alpine. It seems that they rush with the driver like Red Bull does usually, and so for Doohan, hope for him a good result tomorrow. He has the chance to score points, also because in the straight they are very fast.
They are very fast. Yeah, absolutely. And look, Doohan is going to be on those, knocking on the door 4 points, isn't he? Gasly, what can he do? Q3 now coming up, guys, and he'll be looking for the best starting position possible. I can't wait for this one.
Looking forward to seeing what the entirety of our top 10 can do. And I think it'll be a very happy top 10 across the board. Piastri and Norris look like they're going to have a private battle for pole position. Gasly's going to try and replicate what we've seen out of nowhere, really, across the course of the weekend. Antonelli is very close to Russell, but Russell's still got a bit of pace in that Mercedes. Charles Leclerc has looked okay for Ferrari so far. And we have Sainz, who is the lead Williams on the grid for the first time this year. Red Bull have 2 cars. And one of the reasons that they have 2 cars is that Isaac Hadjar was not able to start inside the top 11, something he'd managed at all of his Grand Prix starts so far. And this was his frustration across the line, fighting the car and willing himself to the line, but knowing it wasn't there.
Yeah, you don't normally see the sort of visual frustration, but I think that was sort of building up, and the sit and wait element of once you come out the final corner, push the loud pedal, make sure you ace your gear shifts, but there's not much else you're doing at that point. So I still think he can be feeling good about the way his Formula One career has started. And Yuki Tsunoda, well, uncharted territory with Red Bull Racing. As he goes out, first car looks like he'll be at the end of the pit lane. And I think you've absolutely nailed it, Alex. This is going to be, all things being equal, which one of the McLarens is on the pole. Piastri, just looking like he's found a rhythm here, but spying the cab data, Norris will be all over it.
And we've got two battles, haven't we? We've battle for pole, which surely has to be the two McLarens who didn't go out again at the end of Q2 there. One lap was enough for them. And then the battle for everyone else. That includes Gasly. It might even include Carlos Sainz, who was only a couple of tenths away in the Williams. Everyone else can be trying to be best of the rest, which is a podium, and who knows what can happen tomorrow even from there. So two separate battles, and let's see how they go as the Red Bulls lead the way. But it looked like Yuki Tsunoda was heading out on a used set of tyres for this first run.
Here we go for Q3, the green light illuminated at the end of the pit lane. We have our top 10, our contenders for pole rolling out to set the grid for the 4th Grand Prix of the year. There's some interesting stories here at a circuit where they had the pre-season testing. 3 days of it back in February, and then they've taken all of their learnings to be different under the floodlights. The former team principal of Ferrari, now the COO at Sauber, which will become Audi. Matteo Binotto looking on at the two Scarlet cars in contention for this one. Lando Norris waiting. He knows he could be in a private battle with his teammate. A reminder for you, Oscar Piastri, only one career pole position in the Grand Prix format. Lando Norris chasing pole number 11 in his Formula One car.
Yeah, when you mentioned the fact that pre-season testing hosted at this very track, those new to Formula One might wonder, well, surely they've got the car dialed in and they got their eye in that period, and it's just about going out and acing it. But the reminder for those who do follow Formula One closely, the racetrack is like a living thing. It's like playing golf in the morning with a bit of moisture on the grass. If you get the same lay in the afternoon, it's a different roll of the ball. It's like going skiing. And at that point, I've run out of analogies.
I was excited to see where it was going to go next.
What would you say, gentlemen, to our friends and fans at home watching this? What would be another way that would be something any household could relate to?
Well, it's like playing football on a training pitch, isn't it? You then turn up for the real thing, the opposition's different, and the conditions are all different. There we go.
We need one more.
I didn't have you down as a golfer, DC.
Yeah, I've missed many holes on the golf course back in my younger day. Thankfully, motor racing was more lucrative.
DC 5 times racing around here. Jolyon had 2 weekends in Formula One around this circuit as well. That is close to track limits for Yuki Tsunoda on the exit of turn number 4. Max Verstappen left-hand side of your screen going through, and big correction as the lap falls away from the world champion. Big oversteering moment through the first sector.
The Red Bulls are just really not hooked up, and Verstappen is struggling the whole way through this qualifying session. So he is cooked for that first lap already. Tsunoda will try and get one on the board, but they're on used tyres. It's going to be the McLaren head-to-head that we want to see, and you can see them in the background there on their outlap. So they waited in the garage. They'll be the last cars across the line on this first set, and they're the only ones on new tyres. No, the two Mercedes are as well, and they're starting their laps. So probably the more important ones to see at this stage.
We're completing the tour with Yuki Tsunoda, who will be very relieved to be in this part of qualifying. That was the main task at the start of the weekend. Whether the team would say it or not, could he reach the top 10 shootout? He's done so. And anything from here is a bonus, really, if you consider how tricky that car has been to drive for so many great drivers so far. 131.6, Verstappen does a 32.0, gets immediately out of the way. Now, new tyre runners, what have we got?
Yeah, all of these times are miles off it. The two Mercedes are going for it. I don't know if Antonelli was too wide there, coming out of turn 13, but he's not on a great lap anyway. And this is new tyres for him versus Russell for the first time in Q3, but this is not a lap that's been well put together by Kimi Antonelli. Russell has done a pretty decent first sector. He's made a much better job in the Middle too.
It's a 31.4 for a sixth-place finisher in the Formula 2 Championship of last year. Here's a former Formula 2 champion in a few moments' time.
Russell peut-être la pole position, c'est peu rapide, peut-être qu'il fait moins bien. Et Russell qui arrive. Russell une 33. Oh là là là, George Russell, je l'avais dit les gars, George
happy with his brakes again.
Ah,
Russell going quickly, and he's 1.1 seconds quicker than his teammate across the line on run 1. Pierre Gasly coming across the line for the Alpine goes into 4th.
So it's Russell way clear of everyone else. But what about the two McLarens? Norris has gone quicker than Russell in the first sector. Not by very much though, only half a tenth. And he's 1/10 quicker than Oscar Piastri. So as we see Hamilton come through for another ordinary lap on used tyres, we want to see what the McLarens are doing at this stage.
Fastest first sector for Lando Norris. He took our way through. It is very tight between Russell and Piastri in the middle part of the lap. The middle part of the lap where the McLarens are devastatingly quick, or at least they have been so far, because Piastri and Norris in a straight fight right now as Leclerc goes second, are marginally down on Russell's time.
So Piastri across the line first,
and he's a 10th up. Piastri on provisional pole as it stands. Here comes the championship leader. Lando Norris looking to strike back. Lando Norris is only in 3rd position. And it's Oscar Piastri, George Russell and Lando Norris in what would be a repeat for the top 3 on the grid for the Chinese Grand Prix a couple of races later in Bahrain. And suddenly Russell's come alive with his best lap of the weekend. Meanwhile, the brakes aren't working for Max Verstappen, and he's fighting the car all the way around the racetrack, especially turn 4.
Yeah, he's been complaining of the brakes the whole way through this qualifying. From that first lap that he tried at the final corner and had the big smoky lock-up, this time he's just not got the deceleration that he wanted. He's put him slightly wider, and then he's had the big snap there, and he's bailed out of that one. But out front, brilliant lap from George Russell. It was the best lap of the weekend until that point. Piastri's taken it away by 1/10, but it's game on at the front. They were very lightly scrubbed tyres on the McLaren, so they had a heat cycle, but it was only when Ocon had the red flag, so they'd only come around the pits and gone back in again. They have a little bit more to come from an absolute new hit of soft tyres.
What a difference a week makes with 5 minutes and 20 seconds to go in Formula 1 qualifying. A Suzuka special for Max Verstappen that took the paddock's breath away. He finds himself 10th, massive momentary turn number 4. The ultimate fresh set of tyres to come McLaren's way, but crucially for our 2 rivals for the championship, 2 of the 3 at the very front of the field after the opening races of this year. Piastri, last year, out-qualified 20-4, has found something over 1 lap in 2025.
He's in the groove, and he's really in the groove this weekend as well. He's been taking it to Norris over 1 lap. And it's a nice advantage to be provisional pole on the first lap. It's a bit more pressure on Norris, who knows that if he makes a mistake, he will not be starting on the front row. Piastri might be, but you can never take your eye off the ball. But you want to be getting that marker down on the first run of Q3. It's a tight turnaround as well for the 4.5 minutes. And the wheels come off. It's going to be a really hasty turnaround for Lando to get the new boots on and get back out there. And once again, can he dig out one final lap in Q3? I have to say, the car looks easier to drive this weekend for McLaren. The 2 drivers between them are making fewer mistakes than they have done in previous weekends.
But Jordan referring to how Q3 has gone for Lando Norris this year. In Australia, he didn't have the run at the start, put it all together at the end of Q3. Didn't put it together in China and paid the price. Didn't put it together in Japan and saw Max Verstappen take pole position. Piastri and Russell and Norris in the fight. New tyres for everyone now. Means it's a fair battle with one push lap versus those used tyre runs. Kimi Antonelli and Lewis Hamilton went beyond track limits and have been deleted as a result. The 9th and 10th. The best track conditions of the weekend await the drivers in the field.
So only the top 3 times are relevant for now. Everyone else will find massive improvements going out at the end on a new tyre. For the McLarens and Russell, it's about piecing it together that little bit more and trying to take a tenth or two off it. For the rest, it's trying to take a second off it with new tyres again now. So it's about getting the outlap in, 15 corners, a couple of minutes of just gathering your thoughts, bringing the temperatures into the right point, and then unleashing.
Anthony, son chrono est allé aussi. Ah ouais, j'ai vu
Yuki Tsunoda ahead of Max Verstappen. Verstappen with that moment at turn 4. But this is the real thing. This is where it matters. And the drivers will be out there, ready to find temperature, ready to build into the window that they need. The running order, when we go for the flying laps, will be Yuki Tsunoda, then Kimi Antonelli, George Russell will be ahead on track of his former teammate. And this is only... And that's the moment that took him beyond the white line, saw that first run in Q3 deleted.
Just a fraction for Hamilton at turn 13, but that won't matter. That lap was not going to be good enough for anything meaningful on the grid anyway, on the used tyre for Hamilton. It's 1/10 slower, or half a tenth slower than Leclerc, so they were fairly evenly matched, but they should be blown out of the water those times by what we're about to see. Sweeping it through at low speed, trying to keep those tyre temps down for 15 laps of pain on the rear tyres, particularly around here. Tsunoda has launched into a flying lap just ahead of him, but it's a nice clear run for Kimi Antonelli. He can do much better than he did on that first lap.
Looking for a clean run, looking to try and do what he's done across the course of the weekend so far. Largely ahead, or within 0.2 of a second of George Russell. It would give him an opportunity for his best starting position in Formula 1. If he breaks the top 5, that will be the case. And that's his effort. It was a lock-up into the first turn, which was part of a really tricky lap for him, but he's made the apex this time, and we're heading up the hill, heading towards turn number 3, now to turn number 4.
A difficult traction zone where Ocon's already dropped it in Q2. And then you pick up the brakes as well. He's so wide on the way in. He really opens up the corners more than most.
Russell, plus rapide, elle a pole position, on y croit.
Oscar Piastri,
c'est pas
It looked great on board. It
et oui,
is
bah tu
great
sais,
when you
oh,
look at
Russell
the
qui met chez
timing
la pole, les
page. It
gars.
also
Russell qui met
shows
chez
you
la
the
pole, là. Je
conditions
le
of the
sens
track
là.
and how rubber it is.
Ça va jouer quelques
You've got
minutes
to
en Chine.
perform at this moment. Russell's done the fastest first sector of anyone so far. We do have a multi-team battle for pole position.
Hamilton with a tidy first sector as well. Antonelli's clambering the curves on the entries everywhere. Let's see it. Coming into turn 11, it's a fast corner to the left. To the right, he moves barely on track limits. He's opening it up so much. Really giving it everything.
Antonelli looking for the top 5 for the first time in his Formula 1 career when it comes to qualifying. He's been in the top 4 when it comes to a Grand Prix finish. That was on debut. Yuki Tsunoda gets up to 4th position. That's his effort. He's the first one to go over the line. And now we're going to see what Antonelli can do. His teammates are even quicker behind.
Anthony, premier 32 pour l'anniversaire de ta première ligne, attention. Incroyable, 612 chrono, Anthony. Russell qui arrive sur Russell. Il va à la pole, c'est sûr. Il va le faire. Russell, une 30-0, c'est plus rapide. Les gars, je récupère bien secteur 2. Oh, les gars, c'est comme bordel. Les Mercedes sont 1 et 2, les gars. À 19,5 35. Oh, justement là, Victor. Gasly, alors Gasly, ouais, McLaren, je pète une Leclerc deuxième, une 31. Oh là 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 là, Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly, il fait quoi Pierre Gasly?
A big effort from him, and now to the top 3 in the Formula 1 World Championship. Verstappen 2.5 tenths of a second away. Gasly goes up to 4th position. He continues his speed. Russell has thrown down the time to the rest of the field. Piastri is finding it in the middle sector where the McLaren is so impressive. Max Verstappen to the line. Where can he go? Only to 7th position for the World Champion.
Piastri's only got a fine margin over Russell for pole position. Here he comes out of the final corner.
Gasly la pole, il va te fuir. Oh là 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 là, mais quel chrono. Et Norris
chasing his second career pole. Piastri to pole.
Norris 6ème, 32, oh, il s'est chié dans le dos. Les deux seulement 6ème, Carlos. Attention, il reste 47.
He starts in 6th position as it stands.
8ème,
Norris can't find
la
the
pole
time
position, les gars, pour Oscar Piastri, je l'avais dit en début de live.
improves to 8th position, and it's Oscar Piastri
incroyable. Et on a le 4e, Anthony 4e, les gars. Anthony 4e, bien
position
pour
for the second time in his Formula 1 career. He's the lead McLaren with his rival for the title, Lando Norris in 6th, and his rival for the title, Max Verstappen in 7th.
It's a big lap. It's a big lap from Piastri, and it had to be.
Mais je l'avais dit, Piastri, il était chaud depuis le début du week-end.
Was far tighter than
incroyable, les
anyone
gars,
thought it would be for McLaren. And the proof is, they are
Piastri demain peut vraiment
Norris has made a mistake in the first
l'écart entre
sector.
Norris et Verstappen remontent et peut-être lâcher des gros points et peut-être prendre la tête du classement pilote, les gars. Oh là là, les gars, mais quelle séance de qualification! Pole position Oscar Piastri à Bahreïn, la deuxième pole de sa carrière.
Out-qualified in Formula 1 2024 20 times by Lando Norris. Only 4 times was he the lead McLaren on the road for a Grand Prix when leaving the grid. Formula 1 2025
Gasly 5ème, notre Français, incroyable, franchement 5ème position. Norris 6ème et Verstappen 7ème. Ils vont se lancer côte à côte demain. Aïe aïe aïe, quand ils vont se lancer. Non, Verstappen derrière, je sais pas. 8ème, Hamilton 9ème.
That Oscar has delivered and put a clean lap in, and Lando has just missed a beat. He's made a mistake on that final lap. He should have had the pace to be second or third. Even Russell's managed to improve and do a really tidy lap, but Lando's first sector was as weak as he's had it all qualifying.
C'est complètement fou. Je vais regarder un peu le débrief. On va un peu faire le débrief des qualifications. Donc pour ceux qui m'en jouent actuellement sur le live, donc en Q1 on a
we had a look in the gap. That's how good Gasly's Q2 was. We had a look the last time he was on the front row, and he wasn't too far away from competing. Russell there though, he is the second driver, like he did in China. He has managed to put a Mercedes on the front row when everyone was talking about McLaren.
From the second row, Antonelli, astonishing from him. Brilliant job from Russell, who has been performing to such a high level so far this season. Kind of under the radar because Mercedes haven't had the headline times, but it's the second qualifying in 4 races that he's ended up in the top 2. He's delivering it once again. Antonelli's done well to get the second Mercedes up there. Red Bull, really the big losers from this one, and Lewis Hamilton has never quite been in the races this weekend.
Still searching for the knowledge of how to extract the best from the Ferrari, but the man who knows how to get the best from the McLaren is Oscar Piastri. At a circuit where he'd never started in the top 8, he will start his 50th Formula 1 Grand Prix from the front of the grid. And we do have a championship battle on our hands. A step forward in qualifying for Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris will be grateful that this is one of the very best overtaking tracks of the year as we look at the first sector. The rear loose into turn number 1, and he climbed the hill. You can see the time lost there. Wouldn't have been the only time lost though.
Yeah, there's just a small slide through the apex or towards the exit of turn 1. It didn't look too bad there where we saw it, but I think it's the exit there of the first part, then it's washed wider and had to be compromised through turn 2. Looks small, but that's where Ocon had his crash, and you do lose all the way up towards turn 4 if you can't get the exit.
George Russell made the top 3 around this circuit last year for qualifying, makes the front row 1 year on. Charles Leclerc begins the debrief. It is McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, Kimi Antonelli in the top 5 for the first time in Formula 1 qualifying. Pierre Gasly's best start of the year is encouraging for Alpine as they seek their first points of the campaign. Lando Norris with a tough second run. Max Verstappen with 7th. Very unusual for him, his worst qualifying of the season. Sainz inside Q3 and the top 8 for Williams. Hamilton in 9th and Yuki Tsunoda made Q3 around this circuit. Practice is one thing, performing in qualifying is another. And this season just won't follow the script. You're looking at the top 3 cars, and they are not the same. DC has moved downstairs to speak to the top 3.
Et puis, comme je dis en général à chaque fois,
Welcome back to
que le meilleur